Does he prefer vampire or necromancer? It's time for question and answer. Bum, 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 bum. Cheesiest intro of all time, and that takes some doing, ladies and gentlemen. So let's get out of this wonderful image, shall we? And onto this beautiful sight, orange as far as the eye can see, apart from my face, because I'm not a controversial politician, so I have no need to have orange flesh. Now then, packed show as always tonight. And first things first, let's see who's in the audience. I'm anticipating a slightly lower turnout tonight, considering that we're starting about 90 minutes earlier than usual, because I've got a Kings of War tournament tomorrow and it's a couple of hours away, so I need to be up at 5 in the morning. I'd almost forgotten there was a 5 a.m. So let's see who we've got, shall we? We have the likes of Gloomdready Gaming, Mickey Genver, Auric Lovegod, Ruhark, Sean Blake, Wraith13. Anybody else? I think there were some people in there earlier, but those comments have disappeared. I expect it to slowly fill up as people realise that there's actually a show going on. You know what people are like, they get into a routine. I'm sure a few will just jump on the computer 5 minutes before the usual start time and then wonder why it's already finished. Those poor souls. So, of course, it's the question and answer, or the question and Andy, if you prefer, edition, but we do have some other topics to look at as well. However, first things first, there's something I want to show you, for no reason other than just because I feel like it. Caca! There we go, there's the end of that. So we're going to go on to our first question to get the ball rolling straight away. So I put this to the Facebook group, which you can join in the description below. And I asked people to submit their questions yesterday or the day before. And here we go. So the first one from Mickey Genver. With the development of CAD and the shift towards designing new models by sticking bits of old designs together, I'm looking at you, Fire Slayers. Do you think we could see a company running a repository of body parts where the customer picks some arms, legs, body, head, weapon, and get to build your own dolly that is then 3D printed and sent to them? A bit like Identikit dollies. Not sure what that is. And she thinks it's $1 million idea. However, immediately she was shot down by Dino, who then posted a link to something that is basically exactly that. So that $1 million idea, someone's already made millions on it by the looks of it. However, I do think that there is a gap in the market still, because the service that's available, which we're going to look at in a second, it's missing something. If you think about when you go into, let's say, like a your own teddy bear kind of workshop, and you go in and you can put your own bear together and you can like record a message for it, you give it its own little audio clips when you push its tummy or you squeeze its toe or something. I think we could have miniatures like that where you can record your own voice clips, then they'll 3D print it, and when you like squeeze its base, then it'll come out with something like, I don't know, what would a Space Marine say? Or an orc could just go, wah! You get the idea. What is it Space Marines say? Other than like purge the Xeno scum, something like that. Dreddy is apparently very impressed with the appearance of Jeff there on the show. And apparently Mickey Genver is spreading the word that the show is early, so it might fill up in a minute, the old audience. So there is something we're going to look at now based on that question that just appeared there. So, well, there's another look at Jeff. Caca! But anyway, yeah, here is Hero Forge, which is, of course, designing your own heroes. So let's see what we can do with this, shall we? Let's go for sci-fi, because this is the Friday show, and that's where sci-fi is permitted in the discussion topics. So let's create something quick, shall we? What shall we go for? Masculine robot, feminine robot. I don't know about robot. I'm thinking we want it to be some kind of alien. Let's go with athletic female. Okay, there we go. Now, to design the head. Ooh, what kind of face? Face softness. So you can either have a pointed chin or a kind of face. Let's go for the blue. And How about a lizard? Yeah, there we go. Alien lizard of some kind. Expression. Yeah, that's good, isn't it? With a hint of confusion as well, I think. Let's put that down so we can put the confusion up, because I want it to be slightly confused. A slightly confused space lizard so far. Let's go for some ears. No, I'm not sure about that one. There we go. Perfect. Eyes. Well, how can you not have those eyes? Look at that. Okay, what kind of hairstyle are we going to have on our athletic female space lizard? How about that one? Perfect. Did we do everything there? No, there's still beard. We could give it a beard. Let's give it some big sideburns, shall we? Yeah, there we go. And eyebrows. Monobrow. Teeth. Mickey Jenver says this looks like her, apparently. I don't think you can really see the teeth with this head. Oh, yeah, you can there. There we go. Let's have that one. And do we want to give it some horns? I'd say yes. There we go. And now we're on to the body. Yeah, we want a humanoid body, not a robot. Height, tiny. Weight, let's go about there. Build, muscularity. Well, that's a bit obscene, isn't it? Let's shrink that down a bit. There we go. And the waist. Curves. And the buttocks. Let's make that as big as possible. Wings, yes, of course, we're going to have wings. There we go. And tail. Yeah, that's pretty good so far. Clothing now. Let's see if we want just a nice pre-made outfit. How about that? Yeah, there we go. It's got the gas mask and everything. Although I think we should take that off because we did put some effort into those teeth. So let's take off the gas mask. If it's going to clear. Come on. Cooperate. Okay, let's just have a hood instead then. No, that hides the hairstyle. Let's just have some goggles that rest on the horns. Perfect. Oh, I see. That's where we have to clear it from. Okay, let's get rid of those as well. Shoulders. Some nice big shoulder pads. And I suppose there should be some kind of armor there, shouldn't there? If she's wearing armored shoulder pads. Yeah, there we go. Gloves. And legs. Let's go with a skirt, just for comedy value. And big lizard feet. See, this is quite a tremendous creature we're creating here. Let's give it one chainsaw sword. And what should we have in the other hand? Let's have... Alright, let's put it in the other hand, actually. And then we'll have a shield in this hand. There we go. See, this is pretty perfect right now, isn't it? And the base. There we go. Nice sci-fi looking. Base items. Let's stick a cat on there. And the pose. Okay, that's nice, isn't it? And see, even the cat's up now. Okay, and then we could choose our scale. So 30mm, and the material. Let's have it in bronze. Oh my. That would be quite amazing. And that would cost nearly $100. So yeah, I'm sure this is a very good service. I don't know what the actual miniatures come out looking like at the end. For that kind of price, I'm sure they're going to look pretty tasty. Let's see how much it would cost in plastic. Only $30 there. That's very reasonable, really, for a completely custom-made creature. That doesn't seem like bad value at all. If anyone's used this service, then let me know. If anyone knows the kind of quality you can get out of this. Hello to Timo Moscow, who is apparently watching for the very first time. And also in the chat, I've just seen Mark Harvey has popped up in there. Well, Mickey Genver, your idea has been done already, and it's quite nicely done as well. You seem to have an awful lot of options in there. That's obviously just a small example of the power of that particular website. I'm sure people will be visiting that, making their own hilarious heroes. In fact, sometime tonight, if anyone wants to visit that site and take a screenshot of an amusing hero they've created and then post it into the Facebook group, then that'll be funny, and we can look at some of those next week and rate them for comedy value. That's a nice thing. Some nice audience interaction there. And then let's stop this old screen share, shall we? And let's go on to the next question. But first, there's Idiot Proof Dalek in the chat. So it's slowly filling up despite the early start time. Okay, where's the next question? Here we go. Now, someone was asking me why I sometimes read out people's full names and sometimes only read out first names. And generally, if someone has their entire name as their YouTube username, then I'll read that out, even if it's from Facebook, if they have the same name. If someone who I don't recognize from the comments, who maybe has some kind of pseudonym and then uses their real name on Facebook, often I'll just read out their first name from Facebook, because that's just how I roll, in case people don't want their entire name reading out live on the internet. So let's see. This one is coming from Zara. I'm going to assume that's pronounced correctly. What are you most looking forward to or hoping will be put on a release schedule by the end of this year for miniature war games or specialist games? And she is apparently hoping for Blood Bowl, or Lewd Bowl as it is officially known, or an update to Sisters of Battle. Well, I don't think there's going to be an update to Sisters of Battle anytime soon. I think that's wishful thinking. Blood Bowl is definitely on the way, as we know. I'm not hugely looking forward to that. I would be more interested to see what they did with Sisters of Battle than Blood Bowl, to be honest, because obviously there's been this whole, I wouldn't say revolution exactly, but a lot of war games are featuring women in a slightly more progressive way than Games Workshop have over their history, where pretty much women were restricted to either being elves, like bikini-clad, dangerous warriors with whips, or like hideous, grotesque hags, like witches. And a lot of game systems have moved away from that whole kind of the two main areas that women would generally be portrayed in. So I'd be interested to see what GW would do with a 100% female army nowadays, or whether they'd just be exactly the same as they were before. Space nuns, which are kind of another stereotype, I suppose. Apparently Blood Bowl is for November, according to Mini Warrior, in time for Christmas. What I'm looking forward to, though, what I want to see on all the rumour mills is a release date for Epic, I think. Because, as I've discussed many a time over the last few months and probably years, Epic Titan Legions was my first game. I never really got to play it properly. I missed out on the majority of Epic 40,000. That was kind of coming in as I was going out of the hobby. And then it was gone by the time I got back, pretty much. So I am hoping that that's going to come back fairly soon and it'll look nice. I wonder if they're going to do the bases where it's like a long strip with 5 people standing next to each other, or if it's going to be the square with 5 people and 1 in the middle, like it used to be. I would imagine it would look more like Epic 40,000. So those were the kind of the long 5 long little strips for the squads. And there's so much they could do now. Obviously, the technology has come on. Can you imagine the quality of a starter box with a load of Titans in now? When you look at the quality of the likes of Dreadnoughts and Hellbrutes and things like that that you get in the starter boxes now, imagine how the Titans would look. Because as good as they were back then, some people would argue that they weren't necessarily the cleanest or the most detailed. If you look at something like the Imperator or the Imperator Titan, that looks really nice, but it's nothing sculpting-wise compared to some of the newer stuff. So I'd be very interested to see what they could do with some smallish scale Titans. I think that would be very, very exciting. And then, of course, when you're in that smaller scale, you can go nuts pretty much. With 40k, when you bring in bigger stuff on the table, it kind of fills up the entire table, and it's not really particularly conducive to the playing environment. I think maybe with the smaller scale, when you have things like Imperial Knights, you don't have to move terrain out of the way because their entire base fills up a quarter of the table, and they just stomp on things and you take away half the army. They're just part of the game. And really, how to phrase this, the things don't need to be that large for you to imagine that they're gigantic, standing over individual people. It doesn't need to be, the model doesn't need to be that big. It can be that big. If the people are that big, then your brain is going to tell you that it is this huge, towering monstrosity. So it's going to be equally impressive, I think, and you can just get a lot more of them on the table, and they won't really ruin the game like I feel certain elements of 40k do when you get too big in that game and it fills up too much of the table. I think it gets a bit too nuts. Wraith 13 wants epic squats. Yes, but I wouldn't bet on it. I have a feeling that they'll just focus on whatever is going on in 40k right now rather than going back to anything classic like that, although it would be nice. Ruhark would like epic as well. Uruk Lovegod is not a fan of epic, though. I don't think he said why, so I'll be looking out for some reasoning there, because that's heretical talk from where I'm sitting. Idiot-proof Dalek has been getting more excited by GW lately. Yeah, they do seem to be listening, interacting with the community more, hiring social media people. The position they were advertising for was like a social media kind of ambassador to be interacting with the community and kind of co-hosting those live broadcasts and stuff that they do as well. If I lived anywhere near Nottingham, I would be all over that application form. But sadly, it's a little bit far. I don't think I could travel probably 3 hours there and back to get to Nottingham on a regular basis. Let's see, anything else in the chat before we move on to the next question? Before, though, is there anything else I'm looking forward to that's going to be released imminently? It's probably not going to happen, but I would like to see Warlord do some more Belgians for bolt action. There's a lot of gaps in that particular list. It's probably not going to happen, though, because they're a very, very niche side. Everyone really plays. It's always either the British, Americans, Germans, Russians, and then after that you've got the likes of the French and Italians and the Japanese that are kind of on the next tier below. And then all the way at the bottom, like several tiers below that, you've got like the Dutch, the Belgians. I think the Finnish are more popular than them. I don't know if the Dutch actually have any models at all, so they would be even worse than the Belgians. So, yep, I want some of those to appear on the horizon very, very soon. Mini Warrior, they need Oompa Loompa troopers. Yes, the Belgians do, to go with the old chocolate factory. Let's see. Idiot-proof Dalek. Is it a response to the fallout from Age of Sigmar, or is it a huge master plan talking about GW kind of wooing the community? I think they've just got some new people on board who have looked at what they were doing or what they weren't doing, and they've said, wait a minute, you mean to tell me that while all these other companies are kind of catching up with us in sales and interacting with their communities, we're still going for the kind of Willy Wonka, locked inside the factory, no one's allowed in, no one can have a look behind the scenes kind of idea? Because in this day and age of social media, there's so much that can be gained by interacting with your customer base. And I think all it took was maybe a fresh pair of eyes coming in and pointing that out to them, and them saying, you know what, maybe we'll give it a try, see how it goes. And it seems like it's going well so far, although there are only certain people who would know exactly how well it's going, and that would be the people who are looking at the old balance sheet to see whether the money is actually flying in or whether people are just really happy but not actually spending any more money. And I don't know whether that would satisfy the GW hierarchy. You may end up with more long-term customers, but if they're not spending that much money, who knows? They are trying different things, though. Obviously, they tried announcing something a few months in advance with the whole Gore Chosen board game. So depending how the sales for that go as well, we'll see whether they start announcing things in advance or not, or just relying on the highly suspicious leaks that come out. Sean Blake thinks it's a master plan. It could be. They could just be feigning an interest in the community, and they don't really care what any of us have to say, what our opinions are. They're just kind of, they're not even putting real feelers out. They're just pretending to. It's like a snail with its little antenna. Instead of using those, he's got artificial ones that he's just feeling around on the ground for, because he suspects maybe someone's put out a tray of salt there or something. So if he pulls back his fake antenna and it's got little salt pieces on the end, he's going to know not to put his real antenna out there onto it. I think that makes sense. So it's an experiment where they're not really giving us anything juicy, but they're acting as if they are to gauge the reaction of the community. And then if it's good, maybe they'll continue with it. And if it's not, then they didn't really give us anything juicy to begin with, so no harm done, is what I'm getting at. Because they still don't allow comments on their YouTube videos, apart from one of their it's all their live streams actually allowed comments, but one of the non-live videos allowed comments as well, and I think they did that by mistake, because basically every comment was, "Oh my god, you allow comments now. This is crazy." So, and then they never enabled them after that. So I think that one was a mistake. Idiot-proof Dalek. I think they knew they would lose the veterans, but gain a new base with Age of Sigmar, then woo the veterans back later. That could very well be the case. Age of Sigmar definitely did drag new people in and pushed old people away, and the people that pushed away were the kind of people that only spent money on second-hand armies mostly, I think. So bringing them back in and making them buy new stuff, win-win, isn't it? Okay, let's go on to the next question then. So where were we? I think there was one about 40k. Oh yeah, here we go. From Matt. If GW decide to change the 40k rules to be like Age of Sigmar, how long before you think they will do it? I'm hoping tomorrow. Well, I don't think it'll be tomorrow. I think there'll be weeks and weeks of leaks building up to it, and weeks of people showing their fear and their trepidation on YouTube in video form and setting fire to their Space Marine armies. And the ozone layer will never recover from that cloud of plastic that'll go up when it's actually confirmed that they're streamlining and simplifying the 40k rules. And let's face it, they do need streamlining. You could easily just use the Age of Sigmar rules as they are now with 40k. All you have to do is, well, the infantry would work exactly the same. Vehicles, you give them what the monsters have now, which is a set number of hull points. When they drop down to 5 hull points, they are only allowed to fire this many weapons. Then when they drop down to this number of hull points, they're reduced to this speed. So it would be very easy to translate everything, really, over into the 40k universe in that rule set. Struggling to think of anything else that would not fit. Psychic powers would just work the same way that magic spells work now, which isn't that different from the way psychic powers work in 40k, I suppose. So it wouldn't be very difficult at all. And then you could even have a situation where you could play your Age of Sigmar armies against 40k armies as well, if the rules were completely compatible, in the same way you've got the old War Machine and Hordes thing. So I think they could definitely do it. People would go nuts if they did. Some people would go nuts. Whether it would be right for the long term, who knows? Maybe they're looking at 40k figures, and if they're kind of on a slight downward trajectory, maybe if they Age of Sigmarify it, maybe it'll kind of give it a U, it'll go whoosh, and then come back up again more rapidly. So maybe it's kind of the kickstart that it needs. It's, if you imagine when a car stalls and you turn off the engine and then turn it back on again to get the car moving, maybe it's like that. Maybe they have to take a bit of a dip in completely changing the direction of it to get it on a more rapid upward trajectory. Who knows? Oracle of God, FFG, that would be Fantasy Flight Games, I presume. Passed them last year in sales. Dollars, I think, but maybe in units. Well, they do have their finger in a lot of pies, the old Fantasy Flight Games, don't they? So that wouldn't be too surprising. Let's see, someone mentions Danglers in the chat. There is a question about Danglers coming up, actually, which I have prepared something for, so you can be very excited about that. Let's see, Mini Warrior, I think it's weird they closed their contract with Fantasy Flight Games because they got a very meaningful amount of money from licenses. in their financial report. Well, if GW want to make their own stuff now that they would normally hand out to someone else, that would explain it, wouldn't it? Okay, are we up to the Dangler question? I think we are. This is from Mickey Genber. It would be if it's about Danglers, wouldn't it? Which game or miniature line has the most impressive Danglers? I did limit Mickey to 2 Dangler-related questions for this Q&A, and that's the only one I've seen so far. There may be another one further down that I haven't got to yet. So, there is one miniature sculptor who puts very realistic danglage on all his miniatures. All the models he makes completely naked, male and female, 100% realistic, photorealistic danglage going on. But I can't actually find the page for that sculptor. And even if I could, I probably shouldn't show you on this show anyway, because I'm sure it would get flagged. However, there is a line of miniatures I can show you that does boast some impressive danglage. And here we go. I'll just get the old screen share going. Here we go. So, this is Lead Adventure. Now, I was exposed to these in more ways than one when Dreddy reviewed these miniatures quite a few months ago. And you can't see from this angle, they don't have a rear view on these miniatures. But if you were to turn them around, you would be left in no doubt as to their gender. Let me just say that. There is definite danglage going on, and they also have buttholes on them as well. Sculpted buttholes on these pigs, which of course is very important. So, yep, Schweinstein pigs, Ratnik miniatures, leadadventure.com. So if it's danglage you're after, I can only recommend these Schweinstein pigs. Very, very impressive. There are other ones as well. There's one that's on a little cart. Hold on, let's see if I can find that one as well. Nope, internal server error. Let's not do that. Oh, that website seems to be down. Wow, wow. Well, that's terrible timing on their part, isn't it? They were about to get some juicy free publicity on this, the #1 Wargaming Friday show in the entire community. Dreddy says best piggies in all caps. Yes, definitely. As far as other danglage, Forge World has some danglage going on actually. They have some of their kind of swamp creatures have various dangly bits on them. The swamp hag has 2 particular dangling pieces on her. Okay, let's go back to the questions now that we've got that one out of the way. Okay, wait, we just did the danglage one. Jason Marsh says, what do you think about rule changes to Bolt Action 2nd edition? Well, Bolt Action 2nd edition. Just accepting a request to join the Facebook group there. Okay, Bolt Action. The changes that I'm fully aware of include templates. Instead of this weapon will do D6 or 3D6 hits to a unit. Now it's just templates, which benefits small squads and kind of weapon teams and so forth, because they're not going to take a vast number of hits like they would do before. And it's not as good if you like grouping your models together. It also kind of benefits the bigger units in a way, because you can spread them out and not take as much damage as you would have done if it was just 2d6 hits on the unit. Mini Warrior in all caps says templates suck. Yeah, I'm not a fan of it. I don't like having to think about how far apart I'm spacing my miniatures when I'm moving them in Bolt Action. That's one of the things I liked about the previous edition, the fact that there weren't templates, because having the little tape measure out and measuring like 1 inch or 2 inches or however far it is in a particular system between each model, because you know you're facing templates, it's time consuming, and if you don't do it, you're hindering your game performance. So you could kind of make an agreement with your opponent. Look, can we just assume they're all as spaced out as possibly can be? So when a template lands on them, then it'll just hit this many. But then what's the point in a template? So it just needlessly slows the game down as far as I'm concerned, because if you want to put the time in, you can space them out, but can you really be bothered? That's what I'd say. Not a fan of that. I know as far as other changes they've made flamethrowers a little bit weaker. I think it was vehicle-mounted flamethrowers they made a bit worse because they were slightly overpowered. So I'm pleased about that, because by all accounts, they were far too good. Mini Warrior, they would dive for cover and move. Templates unrealistic, and this is a game that tries to be realistic. Yes, that is a reasonable point. If there was a rule like when the template comes down, you could then move each one of your troops an inch, which would minimize how many of them are hit. Or you could move them like 2 inches, but then they would be counted as activated for that turn to avoid the splash of the template. That would be one way of making it interesting, but as far as I'm aware, there's nothing in there like that. Oric Lovegod says Glad Conflict 47 is first edition. As far as I'm aware, it is, but I don't know whether it's compatible with second edition. I haven't heard anything about that, really. Mini Warrior, that would be complicated. Yes, it would be complicated, but I think it would be interesting, at least. I did like just firing a heavy piece of artillery on a unit and then just, well, I've got 3d6 hits now, rather than having to reach across the table with a template, which was always quite irritating. Other changes to bolt action. I'm not aware of too many others, to be honest. I haven't actually played the second edition yet. I've only seen a couple of videos on it. So once I've actually played second edition, I'll have some further opinion on that. But I don't think there are too many sweeping changes to the rules. It's just a couple of little tweaks, and templates were the big change, I think. Also, I think there was another one with if you activate your commander or your general or whatever, then you can also activate a unit with him, something along those lines, which I think is okay. Because really, when you have a choice of who to activate, why would you want to activate just one guy on his own when he's only got a pistol, when you could activate an entire squad? So it gives you reason to activate your commander. So I'm pretty sure that's in there, and I quite like that. Let's move on to the next question. This is from Jeremy, who says, what are your feelings on Infinity? Is there much of an Infinity scene where you live? Have you played it? How do you feel about the terrain? Lastly, I would just love to know your general thoughts on the game, models, and artistic style. Well, I'm going to assume that Jeremy is a big fan of Infinity based on that question. However, I think I'm going to have to disappoint you because I'm not particularly interested in any aspect of Infinity whatsoever. The models, they're obviously nicely made. They look nice for their genre, but it's not a particular genre that I appreciate the look of, to be honest. I think they all look a bit too clean and somewhat lacking in character for my liking. Now, you could say a lot of game systems lack character, like a Stormcast Eternal or a Space Marine has 0 character in it, unless they're not wearing a helmet. But in kind of a skirmish game like an Infinity, I would be looking for something with a bit more. And as far as I could tell, the facial expressions weren't particularly interesting, and the armor all looks a bit too clean for my liking. As far as the rules go, I haven't played it, but I've watched videos on it. I watched a How to Play series, I think Beasts of War did one, and I've watched a couple of battle reports when I was scoping out the landscape for potential new games to become interested in. And it didn't really grab me. It seemed a little bit complicated. And then everyone said, yes, but in this new edition, it's suddenly streamlined and it's not complicated at all anymore. So I watched another video on how to play the new edition. And to me, it didn't seem that much better. And then a couple of other people have said to me, actually, yeah, they say it's streamlined, but really it's still just as bad. So conflicting views people have got there on that. Oric Lovegod says there are lots of rules. The miniatures are good. Never finished a game of Infinity and thought I got all the rules right. Yes, that's pretty much what I've heard. A lot of rules. Mini Warrior has 1 Infinity miniature and thinks the rules are too complicated. Yep, so it seems to be a pretty clean sweep of opinion right here tonight on 2D6 Friday. Okay, next one. This is from John with a very, very important question. It's something I'm sure the community would like my take on. So here we go. How many chucks could a woodchuck chuck if a woodchuck could chuck wood? Well, the only way I can answer that really, because of course it's not at all related to wargaming, is to suggest that everybody watch the classic film Wood Chipper Massacre. Now, when you hear the word massacre, you probably think that just dozens of people are being poured through a wood chipper by some kind of serial killer. And you would be completely wrong. So you should watch it to find out why. see. In fact, Mickey Genver withdrew all previous questions because she wanted me to talk about that question for the entire show. But I don't have much else on that, to be honest. Woodchucks. Now, Russell here has asked me about 10 different questions, I think, in one gigantic paragraph. So let's go through some of those, shall we? After having a quick look at the chat before I delve into there. Let's see, Bazooka J Rambo is here. An early start today, thought it would be around 9 or 10. Yes, early start because I'm up at 5 o'clock in the morning. That's 5 of the AM for a Kings of War tournament. So I've got to start early, and I'll probably be going to bed immediately after this show as well. And hopefully I don't wake up at 2 in the morning and get a terrible headache because I wasn't able to get back to sleep again. Let's see. So, what models are you most looking forward to? Mantic AOS. Now, I'm assuming that's not which are you looking forward to most, Mantic or Age of Sigmar. I would assume it's what you're looking forward to most from each of those ranges. So for Age of Sigmar, of course, I'm looking forward to the old Steamhead Dwarden. As a veteran dwarf player, of course, I'm looking forward to see what they do with those bad boys and their classic beards of goodness. Other than that, probably more Stormcast stuff. I don't know what else they could add. Depends where their imagination goes. They've already got the big beastie. They've got giant, kind of monstrous cavalry-sized. Maybe some kind of machines. And maybe some slightly less armoured human buddies to just chum around with them. That would be nice. And for Mantic, well, I'm looking forward to getting some of the new Plague stuff for Dead Zone, which is currently out for pre-order, most of it, I think. And that's all looking very tasty, the ones that are new models anyway. And the old ones look pretty tasty anyway, if you ask me. For Kings of War, I would like to see them fill in the gaps in some of their existing model ranges. For example, the Goblins, there are a couple of things that don't have models. There are no Goblin Chariots from Mantic. There are no... the special characters, there aren't any. There's one that's kind of like the Mantic version of Skarsnik and Gobbler, which I think they could make a nice model for. A Goblin with a Moorbeast with him. I think that would be cool. And basically every army in the Kings of War rulebook has something that's missing from the range. The Dwarfs and the Steel Behemoth, for example. So, yeah, I want to see them fill in all their crevices before they start releasing dozens and dozens of new armies. Let's see. What's his next question? What models are you most proud? That's a tricky one. I might be the most proud of my Stormcast Eternal army, actually. I think they look the most professional of all the armies that I've painted to this point. Previously, it might have been my Space Marines, the Dark Angels, but I think the Stormcast have nudged ahead of them a bit. Even though it's not a hugely complicated paint scheme, I think it looks very effective and it's clean, which gives it that kind of more professional look. And I've used more techniques on them than I have on the previous few armies. I also really like how my Dead Zone Plague are looking, but they're extremely simple and quick to do. Let's see, what else am I particularly proud of? Looking around. As far as conversions, rather than just painting, then I'm very proud of my Slaanesh Crabby Chaos Space Marines. I think they're pretty damn sweet, with the big crab arms on them, and the Defiler, of course, which is quite grotesque, with a groinal cannon sticking out of some kind of hideous purple orifice, which you can find a video of on my channel. So, yeah, I'm very proud of all those models that I just mentioned. And there's not much else. My Space Marines, which I already mentioned, I think they look nice. There are certain armies where I'm not particularly bothered if they look at an amazingly high standard because I've wanted to paint them in bulk for gaming purposes. For example, my Undead for Kings of War and Warhammer. My Warhammer Dwarves, which I've been getting out on the table over there, trying to arrange them into a Kings of War army. I think some of them look really good. I think the Iron Drakes look nice. The Hammerers, some of the older ones not so much because I painted them over 15 years ago when I lacked many of the pieces of knowledge that I have now for my painting abilities. Dino Titan Edition and Sebastian Blau have just popped up in the chat. I had a feeling it'd start to spark into life around about this time as people come in expecting it to start after 9. Okay, what's next? What are your expectations for the tournament tomorrow? Well, the last tournament I finished 5th. I think this one has a comparable amount of people in it. This one might actually have slightly more people. So, I am not sure. I don't think I'll finish that high. I won't finish 5th, I think, because it's getting closer to Clash of Kings, so people are really practicing with their hardcore cheese lists, and I'm using a list that I've never used before, although it is only slightly tweaked from the previous tournament. So the only thing I changed, I took out the Wraiths, because I can get my head around using them, but it doesn't come naturally to me. So I'm going to take them out, and I've put in a Revenant King in place of one of the Necromancers, and he's on a horse, so he can be like behind my lines a little bit, surging people from the back. His surge is almost as good as a Necromancer. And then if he's needed to block up a big horde or something to stop them getting into the flank of one of my units in a different fight, he can charge off and do a bit of fighting, and he can actually do some damage, unlike a Necromancer. And I've also expanded the Werewolf unit into a horde from a regiment. So I'm hoping that's going to be a bit more hard-hitting. It's more of a risk because it's a bigger points investment in that block, and it doesn't increase the nerve by that huge an amount. But I think the hard-hittingness of the unit is going to compensate for that. Everything else is virtually the same. I think I may have tweaked 1 or 2 items here and there. The vampires are still the same, the one vampire on foot and the one on a Pegasus. So we'll see how it does. I don't think I'm going to finish as high as 5th, though. Again, as usual with these tournaments, I'd be happy just getting a win. 2 wins I would consider an epic triumph. 3 wins, like I got last time, is a legendary triumph. And then if I were to get 4 wins, that'd probably mean I'd won the tournament, or at least very, very close to won the tournament. So I think I'd probably have to call for some kind of international party of some kind, and I'd have to fly in all the audience of this show round to my house for a huge, big get-together. Don't hold me to that, by the way. I might actually win the tournament, and I haven't got that kind of money to throw around. Unless everyone goes and signs up for the Battle Report Patreon and pledges just untold thousands. Okay, let's see. What are people talking about here in the chat? Well, it looks like people have gone hideously off topic for a moment here. Dino Town Edition was watching a Lude Bowl game. And apparently it ended in a draw with a bad injury on the Chaos side. Well then, let's look at the next question from Russell. One of many. How do you describe your play style? Competitive or casual, somewhere in between? Well, it would definitely be casual rather than competitive. Even though I've got kind of a tactical mindset and I'm thinking of ways to win in advance or during my opponent's turn and so on, I'm looking for possibilities on the table. At the same time, I can't help that scanner running in my brain that's always looking for jokes. If something funny happens or someone makes a comment and my brain can twist it into some kind of comedic direction, then I will always make the joke right there at the table. And as far as wanting to win, I would, if I was offered the chance to win a tournament but make everyone in the room angry at the same time, then I would rather not win the tournament. I'd rather everyone have a good time, and then wherever I finish in the table after that is the second priority. So definitely more casual. I generally don't take particularly cheese lists to any tournament. And the cheesiest army I ever took to a tournament was a Relics tournament that I won, but that was with an army I'd never played with before, not even one game prior to the tournament, and I still won. And that was kind of to make a point that the army was overpowered. So I'm not sure I would really count that. And many a time in tournaments, because of my non-competitive nature, I've almost cost myself because of sporting play. There was a tournament, I'm not going to tell anyone which one, because I don't want to kind of, I don't want to make it sound like one of my opponents should have lost by a greater margin or anything like that. But there was one game where there was a pivotal dice roll, and it was kind of 50-50. If it went my way, then I would definitely win. If it went my opponent's way, then he might win. And I rolled the dice, and it landed slightly crooked on the edge of the table. And my opponent extended his hand for the handshake to end the game, thinking that I'd won. And me looking at the dice and how slightly crooked it was, I picked it up and said, no, I'm going to re-roll it because it's crooked. And then he said, no, you can have it if you want. I said, no, I'll roll it. And I rolled it again, and then it came up in his favor. However, maybe the karma gods paid me back at the end, though, because I did actually manage to hold on and win that game. There was another one. It was a Universal Battle tournament where, this was quite a few years ago, with Warhammer 8th edition. I was undead, and I can't remember what my opponent was playing. Something with an eagle, so maybe high elves, something like that. And there was a crucial objective in the middle of the battlefield, and I had my mortis engine there. And he landed his eagle on the objective next to it at the end of the turn, pretty much. And I knew for a fact that if the eagle stayed there, it would die, because the mortis engine had an ability where it kind of pulse out and do damage to models within range, and it would have almost certainly destroyed the eagle instantly, and I would have won the game then, because he would have had nothing on this crucial objective area. But I don't think he knew that the mortis engine had that ability because it hadn't come up yet. So I told him, look, are you sure you want the eagle to be there because it has this ability? And he said, oh, actually, I'll just move that back a bit. So I don't know whether that one actually cost me a win or not. But that should tell you, very, very casual gaming, not competitive at all, really. If there comes a point in a game where I'm amazingly good at it, it's happened with 1 or 2 PC games over the years. If I reach a stage where all I can see is the numbers, like I'm inside the Matrix, then rather than becoming like a hardcore competitive cheesemonger, usually I just stop having fun and move on to something else, because I kind of enjoy kind of imagination aspect of it. If I take a PC game as an example, something like, let's say a first-person shooter. When you get to the top end of the competitive scene, then you'll have people like turning all their graphics all the way down to remove all the like smoke effects and remove all the grass so they can see you better. And they'll have all these mods installed that like add a glow to enemies and change the crosshair so it doesn't move around and stuff. And once I get to that stage, then it kind of stops being fun for me. I like it to still be a game rather than like the ultimate brain power completely tuned in with it. I like it to be a game first. So an enjoyable experience first, chess second, pretty much. And that was quite a long answer for that question, wasn't it? Okay, let's move on to the next one. Furthest you have travelled to play a game? Well, that would definitely be Adepticon, which was about 18 months ago when I went all the way to the old US of A for that Warhammer Fantasy tournament. Obviously, I was not just going for that, but that did take up quite a large portion of our time at the convention. So that's definitely the furthest. That was in Chicago, so that would probably be, how far is that? A few thousand miles, maybe? Quite a distance. But that was a lot of fun, though, even though one of my games only lasted about 10 minutes because of the weird tournament rule pack. The deployment rules for one of the missions meant all my stuff appeared out of range with no chance of reaching the enemy by the end of the game, because it was dwarves and they were very, very slow. So a couple of my units got gunned down, and then that was it. End of the game. I did actually win one game at that tournament, though. If I'd travelled all the way to Adepticon for a tournament and not won a single game, I would have been very, very disappointed, I think. But I did manage to win one, and I had a good time in the process until maybe the last couple of games, or the last game on day 2, because I'd only had about 1 hour's sleep the night before, so I was just incredibly tired and partially falling asleep at the table. And I think immediately after that I went for a nap and then got up again sometime in the evening, because there's all kind of shenanigans and festivities going on around those conventions. Okay, right, before I go on to the next question, I just remembered something very, very important that I haven't done yet. I haven't muted my phone. Put my phone on silent because it's sat right next to the microphone, and if I get a text message, it would let out a very loud noise, which would be very painful to the ears of the audience, probably. Okay, next question. Who is the better artist? Dreddy, Rem, or you? That being me. Of those 3, the better artist. Well, it depends what you mean by artist, because I've seen that Dreddy can draw some really nice images. She's also a good painter, but the kind of flat paper drawings a billion times better than anything I could do. I think Rem is pretty decent with a pencil as well, actually. As far as painting goes, I don't know. I think at the top end of their effort, it may be about even between those two, to be honest. But I think Dreddy speed paints a lot more than Rem does to get things done for gaming purposes. So if you just looked at their model collection, you'd probably put Rem slightly above, because I think he puts an awful lot of time into most of his. Maybe too much time, so he never actually gets an army finished. And I would put myself below both of them, certainly, because there are a lot of artistic skills and painting techniques that I haven't mastered that they have mastered. So even if some of my miniatures might look as good as some of theirs, that doesn't mean I'm as good as them at art, if you get what I'm saying. Let's see. Tim O. Moscow. Live in Russia and flew to UK to play at Warhammer World. Yeah, I'm sure a lot of people have made the pilgrimage to Warhammer World for games. Oric Lovegod is now asking Dreddy if she's a better painter than me. Well, the answer to this question may determine whether anyone is kicked out of the chat shortly. Moving on to the next question. How did you meet Rem? Well, that's not a hugely complicated story. We both had the Warhammer Fantasy-based YouTube channels around about 8th edition time. I'm not sure who set up their channel first. We probably set them up round about the same time, actually. Thinking back, kind of 2012 sort of time. And we'd made videos on similar topics. He'd made some videos on halflings. I'd done some videos on halflings because I had a battle report with Halfling Pete, and I think Mr. Remington commented on it, which then led me to his channel, because I always check out the channels of people that subscribe or leave comments on my videos generally to see what they're up to, see if they've got any videos. I mean, nowadays it's usually just being horrified at their list of liked videos, like, oh my god, what on earth are you watching? But not so much on Mr. Rem's channel. But I think the first kind of communication other than comments on videos we had was probably over Google+. And once we got talking and he revealed the fact that he never really plays any games because he doesn't know anyone near to him, we played a few games of Warhammer on Universal Battle. And I think they're still up there on my channel. You can go back into the archives and find those Universal Battle games, 8th edition rules that we did. I think Dwarves against Beastmen was the most common one. I think we did that a couple of times. So I'd encourage any 8th edition fans to go and check those out at some point if you've never seen them. And then he was doing a lot of stuff on Reef's channel as well with his Beastmen breakdown of the army book. And that, I don't know whether that gave me the idea to get him on to do a weekly show, but when Age of Sigmar was being rumoured, then I thought, you know what, I think I should jump on this, because I've been waiting for the new Warhammer. I didn't do anything during the end times. I was thinking I'll just wait until there's something concrete to talk about for the next edition, and then I'll jump right on it and get the channel back up and rolling and try to ride that wave of momentum to more subscriberville. And I asked him offhandedly one day, I think, if he wanted to come on the channel and do like a show talking about the rumours, like he'd done breaking down army books on Reef's channel. And he said, okay, let's do it. So we did one. It got quite a lot of views. And then suddenly there were more revelations and leaks and whatnot coming out a few days later. So we did another one, and then another one, and then another one. It just turned into a weekly thing. How did you meet Dreddy? Well, that's also not that complicated. I think it was through the Relics Facebook group, because we'd both post in there, posting like video stuff and pictures of our painted miniatures and so on. And the first real interaction, other than video comments, would have probably been when I was looking for, because I was doing the Relics podcast at this point. There were only ever about 3 episodes before they wanted to change the format and then just never did anything with it. I'm not to blame for that, by the way. I was going to have a segment on there about Relics in other countries outside of the UK to see how it was doing and talk about the communities. And Dreddy was one of the people from the group that I knew as being foreign So I thought, well, why don't I ask her to come on the podcast? So then we did a few episodes. And after that, when the podcast was cancelled, we just carried on chatting and just carried on from there, really. I think she's been the most regular guest on my channel, other than obviously Mr. Remington Steele. I think she's been on maybe about 10 episodes of the Andy and Rem show, and she's been on this show maybe 4 or 5 times, I think. And I've been on quite a few shows on her channel as well, but often while I'm painting with the camera pointing at the desk. And yeah, we play MechWarrior Online with some other people, including Mr. Ruhark. Is he still in the chat? He's also German, one of Reddy's German chums. And also we play that with Jim as well, who you will have seen if you're a fan of Dreddy's channel. Let's see what's next. Best miniature game you have played? That's a difficult one. I think the best rule set I have played could well be Bolt Action. I think that might be true. When I say the best, I don't know whether it's like technically the most free of errors or the most clearly laid out in the rule book or something like that. I just mean the rule set that I've played and thought, this is really good. I like this rule set. Bolt Action, definitely #1 rule set, I think. I'm going off 1st edition there because, like I said, I haven't really played 2nd edition yet. And what else do I like? I did very much like 8th edition Warhammer, but now that time's gone on, I have seen that there were a lot of flaws in it, and they did stop new people getting into the game quite a bit. So I've grown to love and appreciate Kings of War since then as well. And then, of course, I'm a big fan of Age of Sigmar, and that's simplicity. But just purely the rule set, I think Bolt Action is the top. In terms of everything that comes with the game, the overall package, the community and everything, then that's a much more difficult question. I would put it to, it would either be Age of Sigmar or Kings of War, because they both have very nice communities, and I very much enjoy just playing the game when it's out on the table. It never feels like a chore to get through a game of Age of Sigmar or Kings of War, as far as I'm concerned. 40k has felt like a chore on many occasions. The last game I played was really good. That wasn't a chore, but some games have been a chore. Let's see. Bolt Action has never been, but I haven't really been that involved in the community, and it's kind of more historical, so less silliness, which is what I enjoy. As you can tell from the Bolt Action videos I have done, that were all kind of based around World War II and Wilhelm Wonka and his chocolate factory and the Oompa Loompas and all that. Let's see, what is the next question? We're still on Russell's questions here. This is going to fill up the entire show, I think. Most memorable miniature war game you have played? Most memorable one-off game that I've played? I am struggling to think of one, to be honest. I don't know if I can think of one particular game that was more memorable than all the others. There have obviously been highlights, like, for example, winning a tournament game at Adepticon against ogres by blasting my organ guns into them. Let's see, there was another game where, a memorable game from my childhood, actually. It was, I think it was a 2-on-1, me and Halfling Pete against his mate. His mate, by the way, so this story is, this guy is one of the people who is pictured in the front of the new White Dwarf magazine, by the way. I'm not going to tell you who it is. I'll see if you can work that out. But he was the opponent, I believe, for this game. And he had a miniature. It was, I think it was an Orc or a Space Marine or something. And he didn't really have a jump pack, but he claimed that the miniature did, and that he'd kind of sculpted one on, but it wasn't very clear what it was supposed to be. And he like announced in the middle of the game, I've got a jump pack now, when we didn't know beforehand. So Halfling Pete decided, we're talking about 40k here, so I should call him Praetorian Pete instead, since that's the last army he played in 40k. He decided, well, if you're going to do that, if you're going to like change the rules of one of your miniatures mid-game, I'm going to climb onto the table and I'm going to be a Titan now. Hope I didn't just knock the microphone there. So he just climbed on the table. He was a Titan. However, It was a 4x4 board resting on kind of a 2x4 desk. And he put his weight slightly too far to one side, and it just kind of went, and over he went, over the board went, and miniatures on the floor, people on the floor, board on the floor, terrain on the floor. Oh dear, oh dear. All because he was trying to make a point that you can't just change what things are in the middle of a game. And yes, that was very memorable, obviously. Let's see. Okay, I think we're nearly at the end of these Russell questions here. You have some regular followers on the show. Why not include them as guests? Well, I've had viewers or people that were previously just viewers on as guests, and I've asked other viewers to be on. Some of them have rejected because they just don't want to be on camera. And there is a process that I have to go through. How to put this? It usually helps if the person has a YouTube channel, because I wouldn't just, probably, unless I've got some idea what they're going to be like, wouldn't just invite anyone onto the channel, because you'd never know what people are going to say. You want to have a good feel for their personality. You don't want kind of a loose cannon on the show who could just say something and horrify everybody, and then I'd be tempted to just take the video down. Because I've had experiences like that before on other channels, not on this one, but I try to be very, very picky about who is on as a guest. And if anyone asks to be on as a guest and I don't reply, that doesn't necessarily mean that you're a terrible human being or anything. It might just be that I haven't seen the message, because YouTube messaging is notorious for not sending you notifications when you get a new message. Or also, maybe I've just thought, maybe they're not right for what I want to talk about at this time. If there's a topic that comes up and I think, actually, that audience member was an expert on that, maybe I should ask them. That has happened. That kind of thing. I've asked people, but again, some people just don't want to be on live shows. So there are certain people in the audience that I think would be genuinely nuts, and probably I shouldn't get them on the show. I'm not afraid to say that. Treddy says Newbie would just do the helicopter in front of the webcam until he gets kicked. If anyone would do that, it would be Newbie. I don't think Newbie would mind being described as a lunatic. Well, he might, but he's clearly a little bit nuts, isn't he? He's harmless enough. And, oh god, no, they're talking about helicopters now. Let's move on to something else quick. Okay, what was the next question? What is your broadcast setup hardware-wise? Well, there is a webcam right here, which is the Logitech, what's it called? Is there a box around here somewhere? I think it's the C920, something like that. That's the webcam, which is very, very good. Previous to that, I had the Logitech C270, which still looked okay, but I couldn't do things like, let me just find a miniature for it to actually focus on so I can show you. The old webcam wouldn't have been able to do, come on, focus, otherwise you're not going to be making my point very well here. Come on. Let's focus. Let's turn on this light and see if that helps. Yeah, there you go. The old webcam would not have been able to do that. This one has like several steps of autofocus. The other one was manual focus, and you can't access the manual controls while in a Hangout because it has its own software that you have to be running, and the webcam has to be running only in that software. But you get the idea. And I've done Hangout games with this webcam as well, and the picture is much more clear for people on the other end. So that's very, very good. I would recommend this C920 webcam to anybody. I've got a microphone here, which is, have I got the box for that anywhere? I think this is the box here. It is the Samsung CO or C01U, which is a very nice microphone. If you think my audio quality is supreme, then you might want to get one of those. And since I changed my computer, actually, it's helped as well, because the old computer was very, very loud. The fans on it were obscenely loud. This one is much more quiet and subtle, so that helps a lot. And for like mobile recording, or for recording something that I just want the audio for in high quality, then I would use this bad boy here, which is a Tascam something or other. I can't remember which particular model it is, but it's the big fluffy microphone bit on there. So if I'm standing over at the gaming table and I want to record like Mr. Remington Steele doing a little song for a battle report, then I would just put this next to him. And then the camera for making videos with is actually packed away, ready for the tournament tomorrow. But that is, do I have a box for that anywhere? Yes, that is the Canon something. I think it's like the Legria something or other. And it was cheaper than it should have been because it was an X-display model. Occasionally those will pop up on eBay or Amazon, and it'll be like £100 off the price just because it was in a display cabinet, and occasionally customers will have been looking at it and the staff member will have taken it out of the cabinet and said, look, you can press this button and do this, and here's the zoom here like that, and it gets like grubby fingerprints on it, so they think, oh, that horribly devalues it now, so they knock £100 off, and then someone like me who's eagle-eyed swoops in there and grabs it and has no issues at all with it. So that was a very good bargain I got there. I think that's all the hardware. Can't think of anything else to hand that I would use hardware-wise. Let's see, what's next? Oh, he's only got one more question. 2 fish in a tank. One looks at the other and says, who is driving? Which fish am I? I wouldn't be a goldfish because I have quite a good memory. I don't think there's such thing as an elephant fish, which would suggest that it never forgets. What kind of fish would I like to be? Well, my favourite fish was always the piranha. I always wanted a pet piranha as a child. It was maybe a little bit of a long shot that was ever going to happen, though. I think it's quite difficult to keep piranhas, to be honest. But what's like the top of the fishy food chain? What has no equal? Maybe some kind of giant shark or killer whale or something like that. I don't think anything's really a threat to a killer whale, is it? So maybe I'd be one of them. Let's see. Jason has a couple of questions. Have you played one of the many Osprey Wargames books? Well, I think the Bolt Action book is made by Osprey, but outside of that, no, I don't think I have. Why do so many Wargamers support Manchester City? Do a lot of Wargamers support Manchester City? Well, there's me, there's Mr. Ronnie at Mantic, there is... who else? Any other notable Wargamers out there? I can't think of any off the top of my head. But maybe it's either because Wargamers have impeccable taste in sports teams, or if a lot of them are actually Manchester City supporters like me, maybe it's because after like decades and decades of terrible football and no success whatsoever, we needed other hobbies, so we all got into wargaming. And then now that there is immeasurable, incredible footballing success, then we're kind of caught because we don't know where to put most of our emotional effort into caring about football or into caring about wargaming. Like, for example, the Clash of Kings tournament, oddly enough, clashes with a football match that I'm going to. So I can't attend Clash of Kings because I've got a season ticket, so it would be a waste of one match's worth of money if I were to go to a tournament on that weekend. Let's see. Juan Hidalgo Jewels. Great. For once I get on time for a live show and it turns out it started 1 hour ago. Yep, that's what happens when I have to get up at 5 a.m. the next day. For tournaments, the shows start early. Sebastian Blau doesn't like football, apparently. Mini Warrior is a big fan of Leicester, which would suggest that he only started following football last season when they were actually good. Let's see. Andrew Fairbanks says sperm whale. That would be a good shout as well if you're going to be any kind of... Although with whales, though, they're not technically fish, though. So maybe we should go for some kind of shark. What's the biggest shark? Maybe the basking shark, the one that just floats along with its mouth open and eats everything? Could go for that. Just in case anyone was going to comment and say the whale isn't a fish. It's like the whole tomato being a fruit thing, isn't it? What else? I think that's all the comments from Facebook. Let me just see if anyone else posted any in there while I've been talking. I don't think they did. I'm just going to approve another member request in there. And I think there was a comment that popped up in the chat if I can find it. Here we go. From Sebastian Blau. You got the wonderful figure of Talos from Jason and the Argonauts. Did you also get other figures from the Harryhausen line? No, I don't own any other ones. I might like to, if any of them would be suitable for wargaming in some way. Because, I mean, that one, it's not that useful for wargaming. I've used it in games, but it was custom rules. And I've used it as a giant occasionally. But mainly I think it's just going to sit around and look cool. But generally I don't paint models to sit around and look cool. Usually I paint them with the purpose of actually putting them on the gaming table. But obviously not for that one. Right, where were we? Yes, there is something else I wanted to look at actually. So, we're not going to look at this for a huge amount of time, but there is something I want to look at on the Star Saga Kickstarter that was interesting to me. Obviously, it's still flying along, $232,000. But the one thing that grabbed my attention was... Let's see, where is it? There we go. Crab people, taste like crab, talk like people. Crab people. Yes. As you know, of course, my crab Slanesh Chaos Space Marine army could really do with some giant crabby people that look exactly like that, to be honest. And yeah, if I could get my hands on a stack of them, depending how big they are, if they're kind of Terminator-sized, I could use those as Chaos Space Marine Terminators for my Slanesh army, certainly. That would be very, very interesting to me. If they were bigger than that, then I could use them as like a close combat kind of dreadnought type. That would also be very interesting to me. If they're smaller, I don't know what I would use them as. But I have already got 2 converted kind of crab things that I use as Chaos Spawn. So I'm definitely eyeing these up greatly. Incidentally, if anyone knows of any great manufacturers of crab-related miniatures, then let me know. Feel free to drop those in the permanent comments after the show just to make sure I actually see the comment, because I might miss it if you put it in the chat right now. If you know any great crab miniatures, anything that looks a bit like this, because obviously I'd have to wait a while if I'm waiting for these from the Kickstarter. Let's see, when is it due? Does it say when it's expected to ship? October 2017, so yeah, an entire year I'd be waiting if I wanted to get my hands on them, at least. So yeah, anyone knows of any crabs, you can let me know. Because I need me some crabs. Everyone should have crabs, really, shouldn't they? It should be compulsory. Okay, let's drop that screen share right there. And what else do we want to talk about before I wrap this one up? Is there anything else? Idiot-proof Dalek inserts obligatory joke about Andy catching crabs. Yes, I'm going to be catching me plenty of crabs on the internet for use in my crab-based army. Mini Warrior, cupcakes or Space Marine? I would rather have Space Marine than a cupcake, I think, because I can't eat that much cake because it just makes me feel ill if I eat too much cake. It's always tempting, though. Always tempting, especially if there's, like, rhubarb involved. A Mini Warrior, get crab minis at Asda or the Pound Shop. Do you have first-hand experience of buying crab miniatures from those places? I would doubt it. Dreddy bets there are quite a few places where I could get some grade A crabs. Well, Tor Gaming, the makers of Relics, used to stock some very nice crabby miniatures, but they were from a different manufacturer, and then they stopped stocking them. They kind of sold the rights back or something, and I haven't been able to find those since. But there must be some nice crabs out there somewhere. Let's see. Anything else in the old chat worth mentioning before we go off the air? Because it is 9:15 right now, so I should probably be going to sleep very, very soon, considering I've got the tournament at 5 AM. So there were 1 or 2 other topics I wanted to discuss that I can easily save till next week. Nothing urgent. They'll certainly keep till then. So I suppose I can tell you what I've been working on. Today, I have been mostly doing movement trays, the old GW kind of 20 dwarf size movement trays. I was just painting the edges of those and then putting what's left of my magnetic sheeting on them, because I want to have my undead army and my dwarf army for Kings of War both on their movement trays at the same time, just for convenience. Then I can just keep them in a drawer and just lift them out when I want to use them. So I had to make a couple more movement trays for that, which are looking very tasty over on the old gaming table over there. And my army for the Kings of War tournament tomorrow is in a box that away, with my backpack, the lovely orange backpack with my camera and snacks in it and everything prepared for tomorrow. It's going to be a long journey, and I'm trying to decide which CD to take for the car journey as well. Normally, I would take the Steven Seagal classic CD when I'm in someone's car, but it's a very long journey, and yeah, it's Steven Seagal singing at the end of the day. So I might take one of my like custom burn CDs with some high quality PC game music on it. Auric Lovegod gets up at 4 AM every day. That's why I make the big bucks. Yes, the early bird or the early Auric Lovegod certainly catches the worm or the big bucks. They're doing government work. People wishing me luck in the tournament. I don't need luck. I probably do, actually, because people are going to be they'll fine-tuned their cheese from the last couple of tournaments, and only 2 weeks before Clash of Kings, people aren't going to be trying out silly lists. It's going to be hardcore, wall-to-wall, squeezing the cheese as far as you can out of the list, I think. Whether people will be ultra-competitive in terms of their attitude, I don't know, because obviously it's the last kind of friendly tournament before Clash of Kings where all the cheese is definitely going to come out. So maybe people will be a little bit more laid back. Who knows? Only one way to find out. However, in the first round, I have actually been drawn against my regular opponent for Kings of War, who I also played in the last tournament as well. So facing him in the first round, which might be good actually, because normally my first round game is normally my weakest game because it takes me a while to warm up. But against someone I've played against regularly, maybe it'll be easier to kind of get into the zone, especially since I've already played against his army several times. So maybe I'll be able to bypass that kind of first game and go straight to the game 2. Yeah. That's officially what they're called now. Those two modes of my game playing, by the way. Someone asking if Auric Lovegod is actually Donald Trump. If Donald Trump was actually watching this video, I would be less surprised than you would think, actually, because my backdrop and my outfit is the same color as his face. So maybe he feels some kind of kinship to this channel. That would be the only way he felt any kind of kinship to this channel. Right, I think we're going to wrap this one up, folks, then. So I'm going to jump on over to the wonderful image, and I'm going to do another one of these Q&A videos at some point because I think it's interesting, and I'm sure everyone out there is just bursting waiting to hear my in-depth answers on the hard-hitting topics that they bring up, such as how much wood could a woodchuck chuck if a woodchuck could chuck wood, and more. So I will do my best at the tournament tomorrow. I will attempt to bring home the bacon, as it were. Bring home the bacon, and hopefully it won't have a sculpted butthole on it. And all that remains to be said, I believe, folks, is good night out there, whatever you are. And don't forget to join the Facebook group, and don't forget to like the video, and don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already, but you probably have. Good night.